Hey guys, I just got home from work. Obviously this is not what I normally wear, but I just couldn't be bothered getting changed and I don't feel the need to dress up for YouTube or dress down for YouTube. I just don't feel the need to change what I'm wearing. Anyway, last night I was looking through some old photos of me in 2014 in particular, times when I was really struggling with my eating, and I know ages ago I said that I would do this video, and last night really prompted me to have a chat to you guys about it and have a chat to you about my history because I said that I would. So I'm just putting a warning out now, just a trigger warning. I'm going to be discussing eating disorders, I'm going to be discussing binging and bulimia, a little bit of exercise addiction as well. So if you find any of those topics confronting, then I suggest that you tune out now just for your own benefit. So I could start by talking about my self-image in terms of how I grew up and what I was like during my teenage years and all that, but I'm actually going to start at the main incident, which I think kind of triggered everything for me and set everything off, and that was my second knee reconstruction in September of 2013 when I was 20 years old. And I've been quite active my whole life. I've played heaps of team sports, and when I finally had that second knee operation, it was like, okay, I'm going to be out for quite a while. I'm not going to be out playing sport, running around. I'm burning a lot less calories, so I have to be a lot more conscious about the calories that I'm eating. And so I think I made a decision that I was going to be a lot more conscious of my food choices, but I kind of went about it all the wrong way to begin with. So I was at the shops one day, just Woolworths, and I spotted like a protein shake, which was also marketed as like a meal replacement shake. And it wasn't a meal replacement, it was just a high protein shake. It didn't have any extra nutrients or vitamins or minerals or fiber. And I remember it saying that the suggested time to have it was if you're wanting to lose weight, which I did want to lose weight, and I also just really didn't want to put on weight from this operation. The suggested serving was you have it instead of breakfast. So soon after my knee operation, around about November or so, 2013, I started having this meal replacement shake, I'll call it. And I was having it for breakfasts and lunch. And that was my food for breakfast and lunch. And then I would come home and I would have a pretty big dinner. So then my first memory that I can recall of me binging and trying to get rid of it was in November 2013. I was away on a trip with friends and someone cooked a big batch of brownies, and I was trying to tell myself, no, I can't have the brownies. I need to be good. Keep the brownies away from me. I can't exercise as much. No. And of course, when you tell yourself you can't have food, you just kind of drive yourself insane. Combine that with the fact that I wasn't eating a proper breakfast and I wasn't eating a proper lunch, and then all of a sudden I was down 10 brownies, and I felt a lot of guilt from that. And that was the first time that I remember going to the bathroom afterwards and trying to purge. And I wasn't successful that time, but it was the first incident that I remember that kind of set things off. So now fast forward February 2014, I discovered the calorie tracking app MyFitnessPal, which I have been an avid user of ever since. So I used an online calculator to figure out how many calories I should be eating a day for weight loss, and it said something about 1,800 to 1,900, which is reasonable. I decided that seemed like too many calories. So I set my MyFitnessPal at 1,600 calories, and I decided that's how many calories I would eat. So from then on, I wasn't weighing my food. I just kind of guessed at portion sizes by sight. I wasn't tracking my macros or anything like that. It was just calories, and it was 1,600 a day forever. I didn't have a plan. I was still doing the meal replacement shakes for breakfast and lunch, and I probably was eating about 600 calories throughout the day before dinner, and then I come home and I have a massive dinner. Usually dinner was like 700, 800 calories all in one go. And this February 2014 is really when the binging kind of kicked off. And because I wasn't eating very much throughout the day and I had this massive dinner, my brain still craved food, it still craved nutrients. And so I found myself throughout my whole time of binging, probably 2 to 3 times a week, going back to the cupboard after dinner and eating food. It was usually bread and butter, fats and carbs, like the purest forms that you can get. And then after some time, I started purging as well, probably 2 to 3 times a week. And I would do the same when I was out with friends. I'd be out with friends and I'd say no to whatever food was on offer. I'd say no, and then I would end up binging. Nearly every binge for many months on end was followed by me in a bathroom purging. And I did this at restaurants, I did this at friends' houses, I did this at uni, I did this at work, and I had no control, I guess. And it was whenever I binged, it's like it felt like I couldn't taste the food. It was just like my body needed nutrients. Like I told myself I couldn't have the food, and then all of a sudden I snap and I eat it and I couldn't taste anything. And it was the same with the purging. I felt no emotion about it. I felt like it was just a robot. I was like, oh, the binge happened, now this is the event that now must happen. I should also say that throughout all of 2014, I was also weighing myself every day. And I currently do weigh myself every day, but it's more, I'm in a much better mindset. And I don't think, it's not weighing yourself which is bad, it's the mindset behind it. So in 2014, when I was weighing myself, every morning when I got on the scale, I wanted to weigh less. Every single morning. And then I remember the day that I stepped on the scale and I got to my lowest weight, and it felt like such a success for me, which is just so wrong, and it shouldn't be about that. So I always thought that this was kind of just like a phase that I was going through, the binging and the purging. I was like, oh, this is just a phase. I just need to be more strict with my diet. I could snap out of this at any time. But I didn't. And probably after a few months of this, I kind of acknowledged to myself that I had a problem. But I didn't really do anything about it. And I didn't do anything about it for a few more months after that. And I thought, I acknowledged that I had a problem, but I didn't think I was worthy of any help. I didn't think that I was sick enough to deserve help, which is completely untrue. But that's the way that I felt. Eventually, in about July of 2014, I told my parents, which was a really hard talk. They were completely shocked. They tried to be supportive, and they were quite supportive, but often they didn't know what to say, and they didn't really say the right things. The binging and the purging continued. I was in the middle of uni. I often found that, especially while I was stressed with uni work, it would happen more and more. If I was stressed about boys or things like that, stress was a massive trigger for me. In the end, it was actually my dad who did some research and found someone in my city who was an eating disorder specialist, and all he did was he just printed off the information for me, and he came and he put it on my desk one day, and he's like, I really think you should think about this. And this is towards now the end of 2014, and I decided that I couldn't address it while I was still studying and in the middle of uni, so I waited until uni was done for the year. And so in November of 2014, I went and saw my GP. They wrote up a mental health plan for me, and I got a referral to go and see this eating disorder specialist. And I probably had about 6 to 8 sessions with her over the space of a few months. And it was so nice to talk to someone that finally understood, because she's obviously, it's her job. But she'd worked with plenty of people before that were in similar situations, and she really kind of calmed me and settled me. She taught me about how a lot of eating disorders can be triggered by stress and anxiety, and she gave me techniques to reduce my stress and avoid my triggers. She knew, by the way, at this point I'm still eating 1,600 calories a day, and I'm still having my breakfast shake and my lunch shake, and she said maybe you should start having a proper nutritious breakfast. So from the end of 2013 to the end of 2014 was how long, like that's a year of having fucking shakes for breakfast and lunch. And finally she said, you need to start having proper breakfasts. So she knew that I was eating 1,600 calories a day, but she wasn't a nutritionist. That's not what she was there to address. She helped me with the mental illness side of things, really, not the nutrition kind of thing. And I also made it my New Year's resolution for 2015 to stop weighing myself, because I was still weighing myself every day. I still wanted to see less and less. And I went cold turkey on New Year's Day. And that was a really good thing for me, just not knowing at all while I got myself in the right headspace. So in February 2015, I started actually attending small group positive body image classes. So they were kind of run through the same person as my eating disorder specialist. In these sessions, we worked through why we felt this way about our bodies, like what events in our life caused us to feel this way about ourselves, and why we had all this negative self-talk, and then again identifying triggers and things like that. And they weren't eating disorder specific, it was more about promoting positive body image, and gave us some strategies to address the way we're feeling. Like every day, just try and positive affirmations, stand in front of the mirror and tell yourself 3 things that you really love about yourself. Sometimes you might see me hashtag on Instagram, love the skin you're in. I got that from those sessions, so they were really helpful. In April of 2015, I finished up with the eating disorder psychologist. I finished up with the small group positive body image classes, and I was technically no longer classed as having bulimia. So that was great. And I mean, that went on for nearly a year that I had bulimia. Unfortunately, the binging continued, and I didn't really know how to address the binging and how to stop doing it. I'm still eating 1,600 calories a day at this stage, so we might be starting to see a bit of a theme here. Please don't judge my past self. I was also trying to keep my diet quite clean throughout the day. I stopped eating white rice and like white pasta and white bread. And which is good, and I was eating a lot of nutritious foods and topped up on veggies and things like that. But I kind of had this mindset that there were like good foods and bad foods. And I think that also didn't help to my kind of binging mindset as well. Like, yeah, I can't have that, that's a bad food. And I was constantly telling myself, I can't have that for various reasons. And then of course it would still lead to binging. June 2015, I finally made another step. I knew that I wasn't eating enough for the exercise that I was doing. Alarm bells went off. So online calculator is saying that you should be eating 1,800, 1,900 to lose weight, 2,100 to maintain your weight, yet you're eating like 1,600. Maybe that's not okay. So I finally decided to address that. And I went and saw a nutritionist. And the nutritionist first introduced me to macros and wanted me to start counting macros. However, they wanted me to look at the percentages of my total calories. So 40% carbs, 30% protein, 30% fat, that kind of thing. And I know now that that's not ideal, but it got me start thinking about the macronutrient composition of food. I was still insistent at this point about not gaining any weight. I was still kind of, I want to eat more food and I should eat more food, but I also don't want to gain weight. I'm scared of gaining weight. And I expressed this to the nutritionist. And so what they suggested is use your Polar Watch when you exercise, and see how many calories you burn. Start your day in MyFitnessPal at 1,500 calories. And then however many calories you burn during exercise, you can eat back. And I would still be, over the course of a day, burning more calories than I was eating because of just day-to-day activities, walking around, that kind of thing. So I would still be in a calorie deficit, but that way I was going to be eating more than 1,600. So it kind of saw that as a way for me to eat more, but still be in a deficit kind of thing. And so began my poor relationship between exercise and food, because when you're relying your intake on how much you're burning, if you fuck up with your intake, you want to burn more calories. I started dragging out workout sessions longer than was actually necessary. A couple of times I remember I had a really big breakfast or a really big lunch, and I plugged it into my fitness pal and was like, oh, this isn't going to work. I don't have any calories left for the rest of the day. So I would go and do a second session for the day. I got a couple of injuries here and there, and I insisted on continuing to work through them, and it wasn't a good space that I was in. And then on rest days, which I was still taking one rest day a week, because I wasn't exercising, I was eating 1,500 calories on rest days. So yeah, logic? No. So also around June, my friend Steph told me about Nick Cheadle. And if you haven't heard about him by now from me, then it's time you hear about him. I followed his Instagram, I subscribed to his newsletter, and I started trying to absorb information from him. He had amazing results with his clients through flexible dieting, so I just kind of sat quietly for a while and watched. I still had the attitude that some foods were good and some foods were bad, and so I wasn't really sure how I felt about it or how he would actually be able to help me. From June through to November, 2015, I was still struggling with binging. The macro percentages that the nutritionist had set me on was initially 40% carbs, 45% protein, and 15% fat. And I tried that for a while, and I wasn't eating enough fat. I was eating something like 25 to 30 grams of fat a day. And before June 2015, I never really liked peanut butter. But then all of a sudden, I found myself most nights with my finger just in the peanut butter jar. And I was like, but I don't even like peanut butter. What am I doing? And I was just literally eating peanut butter out of the jar. And it would happen so often because the peanut butter that we had was like specifically for my brother. And so many times over that 4-month period, he would go to the cupboard and be like, where's my peanut butter gone? And I'd eaten it all. I remember one time when I was particularly stressed with uni and stress causing binging, I ate half a jar of peanut butter, and that was not a good thing. That was like 1,500 calories or something like that. And my binging, now that I look back on it, I didn't realize at the time, but my binging on the peanut butter was because I was eating so little fat throughout the day that my body just craved it. And after a while, the nutritionist suggested I readjust my macros, so I was on 40% carbs, 40% protein, still way too much protein, and 20% fat, still not enough fat for me. And I was still binging on peanut butter. It didn't fix it. In November of 2015, I finished my thesis and I just called it. And I said, nah, this has gone on for like 2 years now. I need to keep trying. I've gotten over the bulimia, but I'm still binging. I need to do something. So I reached out to Nick Cheadle. I went up to Sydney and I visited him and I sat down, I chat with him and I quizzed him. And I realized that he was the real deal, and I signed up for nutrition coaching with him. He told me to stop using my watch to track my calories. He said, don't even look at it, don't even know. I don't want you to relate the exercise that you're doing and the calories that you're burning with your food at all. We're going to put you on the same amount of carbs, fats, and proteins a day. We're going to give you some consistency, and you're going to start hitting that. So from when I started with him, I still had a couple of binge episodes over the next couple of months. But it was actually shocking how quickly the binging stopped from like 2 times a week, maybe. It was probably even more than 2 times a week while I was on 15% fat, because I just went nuts with that peanut butter jar. 2 times a week to basically like once every few weeks, because I had this consistency. I had someone that I could check in with every week, and even more than that if I was struggling at any particular time. And most importantly, I had a balance of each macronutrient. I wasn't eating a stupid amount of protein, and I wasn't eating a stupidly low amount of fat. I was finally reaching balance. What even is that, right? So when I started with Nick, the goal was to kind of rebuild my metabolism, because it was really all over the place. I'd been so restrictive for so long, and then I'd been all over the place with the exercise and the food. It's like, let's get some consistency, let's rebuild your metabolism, let's see where we're going. And I told him that from that point, once my metabolism was kind of better again, that's not a very good description, that I wanted to lose weight again. Still had this want to lose weight. But as we continued with the reverse diet, pushing up my maintenance, we kind of got to the end of January. I was like, no, actually, let's not lose weight again. I started to realize what the reality of dieting was, just kind of through the information that he was putting out. And I realized how kind of restrictive I was going to be. And I was like, I'm sick of being restrictive. Sorry, I had to redo the battery. Yeah, I was sick of being restrictive after like 2 years. So I was like, no, let's try a bulk. So from end of January to end of June of this year, I did a very, very conservative bulk with him. I probably only gained about 1 kilo, but I gained 5 kilos when I went overseas in January. So that weight was not due to Nick, that was just all me. Then kind of all of a sudden, well, not all of a sudden, I guess it happened really slowly, but then I kind of came to a sudden realization. Earlier this year, maybe in like April, May or so, I realized that I'd come to kind of accept my body. I was at the heaviest weight that I've been, and I realized that by going through that process of reverse dieting, of gaining weight, of repairing my metabolism, of trying to build muscle, I had different goals, and it kind of forced me to accept like the shape that I was, because I wasn't perpetually dieting anymore. I wasn't perpetually trying to be less and less and less. I had different goals, and I just kind of started to accept my body shape for the first time. And for the first time, I didn't feel the need to be less or to restrict or anything like that. So I finished my conservative bulk in end of June this year. I was at 27% body fat. Now, if you've watched my previous video, The Realities of Dieting Part 1, where I'm currently at, I have been dieting for 22 weeks. And yes, I am trying to lose weight, but I was at a kind of higher end of the body fat spectrum of where I'd like to be. Again, not due to Nick, it was due to my holiday overseas where I ate everything at the start of this year. And so I'm planning on losing that weight, and then I'm planning on bulking or gaining weight for quite a while next year. And so I've learnt, I suppose over the last 3 years, I've been through a bloody journey, that's for sure. I've learnt a lot about myself. I've grown a lot. I've learnt about my triggers. I've learnt about my body, what it needs, what nutrients it craves, how it works. I have a better understanding of food than I ever have. And it's so unfortunate that I had to go through all of that shit to realize that. It's been really tough. Over the past day or so, I was looking back like in my FitnessPal to prepare myself for this talk, and I was looking back in like my Google Calendar at like events that I had on, and I remembered what I was like at those events and the sequence of events that played out through the night. And it was really hard going over that all, but I feel like although this is my story and this is my scenario, if I can share this and it helps one person, then that's worth it. And everyone has a different experience, and I just want you to know that I felt like I wasn't worthy or deserving of help. I felt like for so long that I didn't actually have an issue, and then when I did kind of acknowledge that I had an issue, it wasn't a real issue, it wasn't a big enough issue. No. If me saying this today has made you realize, okay, wow, maybe I do have a problem, please hold on to that. Please don't ignore that. Please talk to someone, talk to a close friend, talk to your family if you can, talk to a GP, just talk to someone and get the ball rolling, because you deserve to be the healthiest and happiest that you can be and really comfortable in your own skin. And I don't want anyone to go through the shit that I did. So I think I'm done. That was really long. And I held it together. Go me. Woohoo. I don't know how many questions people are going to want to ask, follow-on questions or that kind of thing. You're welcome to ask follow-on questions in the comments below. If I do get a lot, I might do a follow-up Q&A and do the answers to all your questions. So feel free to subscribe if you want to see more from me in future. But there you go. That's my story. Thank you for listening. See you later, guys.